On any evening in the south of England, viewers of TVS's late-night programme Company can join a group of friends as they sit round a kitchen table at the end of the day and share something of their own experiences of God in their own lives and in the world. When the news broke in January 1983 that the world evangelist, Canon David Watson, had cancer, two of the programme's regular participants, Adrian and Bridget Plass, who are involved in running a children's home in East Sussex, asked viewers to join them in the worldwide chain of prayer for David's healing. 7 months later, they were able to see for themselves how God was working in David's life when he joined the programme for 7 evenings in July.
A new relationship is established.
In this first programme, Adrian remembers his first encounter with David Watson.
17 years ago, as a teenager, I heard David Watson speak, and since then he's become one of the most sought-after Christian speakers in this country. In January, David, you heard that you had cancer. Tell us how you heard about that.
Well, it came as a tremendous shock, as you can probably imagine. I'd just been going to the doctor for a prescription for something which I take to control asthma, which I have very regularly. And it was only as a kind of a passing aside as I was going out of the surgery that I said, oh, by the way, do these have any kind of side effects? I seem to be going to the loo rather a lot just recently. And he picked it up very quickly and asked 1 or 2 questions and had on-the-spot examination. And then sat me down and said, you know, I think you've got an ulcer in the colon and it could be very serious. I'd like you to see a specialist at once. Now, I panicked a bit and I said, but I can't. I'm just off to the States for 5 weeks, you know, and I got masses of lectures and things to give. And he said, well, it could be very serious indeed. I said, do you mean malignant? He said, well, it could be. And I could almost sort of feel my heart thumping away at that time, you know. So I walked out and within a couple of days I went to the consultant. It was confirmed. Within 3 days I was in hospital. That was
and you had no idea before?
No idea at all. No, it was a total shock, really.
Can I just ask you, when he first said that you had something was wrong and you panicked, what did your mind leap to first? Where did it go?
I think inevitably it was a kind of, it can't be true, you know, this is a kind of a scare that one has from time to time. And I think everybody feels, well, you know, it can't be me. I read the papers and it happens to so-and-so and so-and-so. It happens all over the place, but it can never be me. And I remember having distinctly that kind of feeling and felt, well, it can't really be more than just a frightening sort of scare. And I went on preparing for my trip to the States, which was going to happen in about 4 or 5 days' time. And then when I saw the consultant, and he was very kind, and he said, yes, you need an operation at once. I said, well, I can't, I'm just off, you know. For 5 weeks I can think about it then when I come back, perhaps. He said, look, you have a malignant ulcer in the colon, you need an operation at once.
And did he put a name to it? I mean, did he call it a cancer?
No, it's a curious thing, you know, I'm a bit naive about all this kind of medical jargon. And the word cancer was never used because it's got a kind of high voltage sort of feel about it all, you know, everyone's ever frightened about that. And even malignant ulcer sounds a little bit less frightening than cancer.
Yes. So when was the point? I mean, I know that you are in fact facing death. I mean, you've been through an operation which was successful and then it was discovered that in fact you've got it elsewhere in your body. So when is the point come that you actually had to face the fact that you might die?
Well, I had an operation which was successful. I thought I would have to have a colostomy, but that was fortunately avoided. And then they all came, you know, to say, well, all was well, but in the operation, I'm sorry to say, we found the cancer spread to the liver, and that's inoperable. I'm very, very sorry, they said. And it was just like having a kind of death sentence. And I said, well, how long have I got? They said, well, 6 months, a year, 2 years, we can't be sure. And it was very frightening, you know. I suddenly felt, gosh, I didn't quite know how to cope immediately with just suddenly having a death sentence. My wife would burst into tears, inevitably so. And it was just difficult.
Well, now, you are a Christian. I mean, you've been a Christian for some years. Did it seem to you that your Christian faith immediately supported you? Or did it perhaps desert you at that point, your faith, your belief? How did that affect your reaction?
Well, it certainly affected the reaction, but to be honest, it didn't protect me from the panic feelings to begin with. you know, because I've always preached about how wonderful heaven is going to be.
Yes.
You weren't planning to get there quite so soon.
But, you know, when it comes to the crunch and you maybe getting there rather sooner than expected, I found myself almost shocked by my reaction, because if heaven's really going to be heaven,
Yes.
now why was I threatened by death?
But you seem very peaceful now, David, so
Yes,
you must have
yes.
gone through something that's brought you to this state. I mean, you must have somehow got over this appalling
Yes.
hump you've had to get
Well,
over.
someone challenged me, not challenged me, but said in a letter that I had to get from the stage of being theoretically willing to be in heaven, but really wanting to be on earth, which I suppose is where we're all at,
Yes.
to actually wanting to go to heaven, but being willing to stay on earth. Now, that was quite a transition stage. And I really had to check up, you know, how far did I know God's love? How far did I really love God? How far was I absolutely sure about the future, life after death, which I was as a Christian sure about, but I had to go back to the very foundation of my faith, because if I was facing death, then how real is this?
Certainly Steve Flashman, who joins us occasionally, was in a car accident recently, or a near car accident, and he said that at the point where the impact was about to happen, unfortunately didn't, his whole Christian faith came under question for him at that moment, and he had to do an almost instant reassessment and examination of his faith.
Well, I think that is true. I've always said in talking to others that I'm not really afraid of death, because I really believe that it's just, someone said death is the old family servant who opens the door to welcome the children home, and that's what I think it is. But I've often said, afraid of the process of dying.
Right.
And I've always imagined that someone under sentence and death, the worst thing is the actual waiting for it.
And do you still feel that, or have you
No,
found
I've got to a
some
place
peace
of
in-
tremendous peace about that, because I'm absolutely peaceful of being absolutely safely in God's hands. I know the reality of God. I know that he will see me through death. It is just the open door. I know that whatever happens, the best is yet to be, which is I've often said to other people, but I had to say it to myself.
Yes.
The best being heaven.
Yes, I mean, basically, we can know the love and peace of God here and now, but we're still caught in a world full of suffering and pain and sadness and so on. And I know that heaven is going to have none of those negatives there. And therefore, whatever happens, actually, the best is yet to be. I mean, to be actually free of toothache, backache.
Yeah, toothache especially.
It's quite something,
So
you know.
can look forward to the future,
Yes, yes,
whatever.
yes.
Yes,
I think that with the Lord, you can never lose
right.
once you've lost your